Hi, Vlad here, devinside.com. At last we're approaching the final episodes in this playlist. Today we're talking about code quality, and even if you have never written a single line of code in your life, you can still benefit from this video. Development teams are often trapped in a dilemma. They want to be paid for what they do, but what they do provides little value to the business. Wait, what? I thought you said back in episode 2 that developers earn a lot. Let me explain. What do developers do all day? Or at least, what do they want to do all day? Well, they want to build cool things by writing code. Okay, well, do they sell the code to someone at the end of the day? Nope. Does anyone apart from other devs read the code they wrote? Nope. So I guess they're being paid for that cool thing that they built. Well, sure, but what is that cool thing? Well, the cool thing is a running application that provides value to the users and therefore value to the business. But neither the users nor the business see the code. In one of my future episodes, we will talk about the economic forces of software. All we're doing today is trying to give an answer to the following question. If no one apart from other developers sees the code, does it even matter to the users or the business? I wouldn't go as far as comparing it to the philosophical question, if a tree falls in the forest and there is no one around to see, does it even make a sound? But still, it's a very important question and you're still watching this, so I guess you want to know the answer. Spoiler alert, the answer is duh, of course it matters. It is important to distinguish computer programs from software applications at this point. For the purpose of this discussion, we will define the goal of every computer program as follows. Calculate that thing that I want you to calculate and show me the result. That wasn't really scientific, I agree, but it gets the message across. Once the result is there, we don't care about the program or its code. Fun fact, a German slang for the word computer is der Rechner, which translated means the calculator. This shouldn't come as a surprise since the words to compute and to calculate are so close to each other. Typical examples of such programs are simulators or reports of some kind or, the actual calculators. The goal of a software application, on the other hand, is defined as follows. Keep generating value by running. So a software application is a long-living thing, and as a long-living thing, it needs to grow and adapt to the users as well as business's needs. So there is no result to calculate, there is no end to the computation. Theoretically speaking, a software system can provide the most value if it never stops running. So to summarize, a computer program provides value once it stops running, and a software application on the other hand provides value as long as it's running. Now, software runs on top of hardware, and what's so soft about it? Well, the idea is that software is easier to change than hardware. And here comes the answer. You can't change the application without changing the code in one way or the other. Think about it for a second. An entire industry has been built around the idea of producing something for the purpose of being able to easily change it later. The goal of the code that you write today is for you to be able to throw it out tomorrow and replace it with different code. Change is the only constant in software. And we have hundreds of books and blogs and principles and case studies and manifests and guidelines about writing software in such a way that it is easy to change. Because just separating text files with some cryptic things in them from zeros and ones that actually run on hardware doesn't do the trick. And this is what developers are paid for, not for the code itself, but for its ability to adapt and grow with the business's needs. Therefore, yes, code quality matters for the users and for the business. The question has been answered, but before I leave, I would like to mention 3 things related to the topic. Number 1, legacy code. Legacy code is surrounded by a stigma. Developers usually assign the legacy code label to code that is typically old, and while the rest of the system adapted to the change, this particular part of the code base didn't. Since this code is still used throughout the entire system, it's hard to change it without breaking things, and this is what we typically call legacy code. The terms rigidity and fragility are used quite often in that context, and of course we will talk about them in the future. It is worth noting that outside of the software realm, the term legacy is rather associated with something good, something that is inherited, something that has value. And even though developers seem to have forgotten the original meaning, I would argue that this positive association applies to software as well. A legacy codebase is a system that provides more value by maintaining it as it is instead of rewriting it from scratch. Now we're talking about the monetary cost and value, or in other words, it's a good thing for the business and probably for the users, but it's not as pleasant for the developers. You can't have everything. Number 2, bad code slows developers down, which apart from being frustrating, prevents the business from growing at its optimal pace. Sometimes it prevents the business from reaching its full potential and even kills entire companies. If you're someone who is just starting out, it might be hard to imagine that bad code is not always entirely developers' fault, but this is a topic for another video. For now, all you need to understand that bad code is associated with immense costs. The cost so high that it could kill the business. More often than not, this cost is hidden and it becomes quite hard to communicate the value of good code to all stakeholders of the project. Over the years, it has been proven that it is hard to assess the productivity of a development team. The business has little to no knowledge about the cost or even the existence of bad code, and even developers often underestimate the implications of it. I'm asking you, please care about the code you write. Programming is already hard enough, but it can be made easy if everyone cared about the code. Number 3. When you start writing code, your goal will be to solve problems. You will realize sooner than later that there are many solutions to the same problem. Some require more code, some require less, some are more performant, the others are more readable, and so on. There are always trade-offs to make. Nothing is perfect. Readability and code aesthetics are very subjective topics that are frequently discussed in software circles. In my experience, 99% of the time, the code that is easy to read is more important than the code that is easy to write. I already mentioned that in one of my previous videos because it's important. Writing exists only for one purpose and one purpose only: reading. And whoever reads what's written wants to understand. It turns out that it's not hard to make the computer understand, but code is a communication medium for all stakeholders of the project. It is meant for other people to understand, including the future you, which is why my last 2 videos and this one are about caring. So even in a one-man project, don't optimize for writing, optimize for reading instead. I understand that some of the things in this video must be hard to imagine as a beginner. We didn't even talk about what good code is. For now, just don't worry about it. But also, don't forget. That's it for today. The playlist is almost over. I'm sure you're excited about what's coming next. Subscribe to find out. It's Vlad, and see you next time.